We're in the midst of a huge transformation where our peers, communities, and workplaces are all really melding into one. Welcome to Reimagining Company Culture. My name is Christina Giordano, and I'm a Partnerships and Community Manager here at AllVoices, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. Today, I'm very excited to welcome our next guest onto the show, Khady Gaye. She is the Manager of HR Corporate at United. Khady, I'm really excited to speak with you. If you could share a little bit about yourself, including your pronouns, and what has recently brought you joy.
Thank you, Christina, for this invite. And as you said, I'm a manager HR corporate for United Airlines based in Chicago. Very quickly about myself, I'm a passionate, positive person. I'm the mother of 2 daughters. I consider myself as a citizen of the world. I'm multilingual. I have a passion for diversity and inclusion. And what brings me joy, and this is probably the reason why I'm in HR, is interacting with people. Mm-hmm. I have a strong interest in people. So this is really me in a nutshell.
I love that. And how do you think that your personal journey, speaking of your experiences and your passions, really led you to be a manager of HR corporate at United Airlines?
Yeah, my journey, as I said earlier, is really about putting people first. I have a genuine curiosity for people. Throughout my career, I have been able to travel around many countries like Europe, Middle East, Africa, and now the US. And those experiences have really enabled me to increase my cultural awareness. And by putting people first, it's really about showing empathy and compassion and kindness. And throughout my journey, I've always been able to combine my personal values with the values of the company I've worked for. So this is really priceless that I'm able to do that, because then it's really giving you that level of satisfaction that you don't feel that you're working, because you are just living your passion.
I love that. I think that's really important. Your job can't be, the best all of the time, but there are really fulfilling moments, and it comes back to that purpose as well and the work that you are doing. And speaking of just like people are complicated, and over this past year, people have been really creative with their strategies. And I wanted to ask you, from your experience, how has United's HR strategy really shifted over this past year? How has United needed to be really creative in that people space?
Yeah, this pandemic has really shaken the world upside down. So I think many of the companies, small or large companies, had to reimagine and rethink how they would deal with people, or how they would do business differently. And when it comes to people with a pandemic, you are in the middle of a crisis, it's really refocusing on the human aspect. It's how do people feel? It's about their well-being, putting them first. It's about well-being, it's about safety. So within my company, United Airlines, over the past 18 months, the focus was really on providing the workforce with open and transparent communication throughout this whole journey that we are going through. And like you say, there are ups and downs. Everybody is feeling this pandemic and impacted or affected directly or indirectly in various ways. So as a company, and particularly HR, we have to pay attention to that. The one size doesn't fit all. What is it that we do offer to our employees to ensure that we provide them with the necessary resources or support in order to go through that difficult journey altogether. And personally, I feel like this pandemic has really given us the opportunity, all of us, to pause, rethink, and I feel like we are more connected than we were before. But that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we're in each other's kind of I'm in my home right now working, and we're connecting as well. And there's that opportunity to be connected. One of the pieces you mentioned around safety, something we believe at All Voices, as well as psychological safety, that culture of feedback. And you also shared your passion for diversity, equity, and inclusion too. Can you tell us a little bit around United Airlines diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy, what that entails, any goals there?
Yeah, so within United, we say that we unite the world, uniting the world, connecting people. We will only be able to do that if we are living it. So diversity, equity, and inclusion is really who we are. It's part of our DNA. So what does it mean in terms of strategy is ensuring that we have a holistic um, strategy and approach when it comes to putting that into practice in everything we do.
Mhm.
As I believe that diversity, equity, and inclusion, it should not be limited to an HR or diversity, equity, and inclusion department. It's everyone's responsibility. And of course, senior leadership will be held accountable for certain aspects. So the strategy at United, as I said, uniting the world, connecting people, it's around our culture. So who we are, our employees, the behavior that they are demonstrating at workplace, the way that they are interacting with our customers, with our commercial partners, or the way that we are collaborating with our communities. It's about representation. I mean, if you are flying around the world, we also need to ensure that we are representing the passengers, the customers that we are serving. And it's not only passengers, it's also like, with whom are we doing business with? Like having a diversity supply chain strategy in place as well. So that's about representation. And I think equity is part of this whole process, ensuring that our programs, our processes, and everything we do, we pay extra attention in terms of fairness and equitable for each and every one. And then the branding piece is also part of our strategy, which is also important to ensure that we do proof and we do not make any promises. So we prove what we are saying and we walk.
Yeah, actions are really important in terms of a holistic diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy. It sounds like you're working with vendors and suppliers and also employees, and just the general mission of United Airlines is it's part of that as well. Speaking to more so just the company culture in general, in your experience and opinion, what is really important to ensure that all folks at United feel like they are part of the one company?
Yeah, the airline industry, it's a very specific environment. You have to expect the unexpected. And personally, throughout my journey, and I've been 5 years within the company, it's an amazing industry. The level of compassion and empathy that you can have from employees and passengers is so rewarding. So our culture shifted. Well, when I joined, the company was going through a change in culture. And changing a culture within a company takes time. And it was really ensuring that we built the trust with our employees. One example is what we call the core four values, ensuring that we empower our employees to be able to make decisions that are based on four pillars, which are safety, dependable, caring, and efficient. So the core four values is something that is really living within the company. Other couple of changes, if we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, now we have the E, but before we were talking about diversity and inclusion. So
Right.
this is also another shift in order of, ensuring that we have that culture that is sustainable on the long term. And as you may know, when it comes to change, um, change has always been the permanent factor. People instinctively are resistant to change, and change takes time. So we are making progress in the right direction, and we want to make progress in a sustainable way for the long term.
Change does not happen overnight. And also in terms of diversity, now equity and inclusion, it's not a check the box kind of plan here that you can stop working on it. It's a really dynamic process and everybody's on that journey. And in terms of employees, you have all different kinds of employees who are working at your company. There's both field and corporate employees. What do you think about the culture between field and corporate employees and melding them together and making sure folks feel that they're doing the best work?
Yeah, everything I share here is my personal opinion. I've been working with field employees in the past, and personally, I don't like that we make that difference between field employees and corporate employees. For me, personally, as I said, I put people first. So for me, we have employees. And of course, they are in different categories. But at the end of the day, what is the difference is the work that they are doing and the work environment that they are in. But for me, they are all United employees. So I would rather, I've seen corporate employees and field employees, they have the same issues. They have the same issues. So I would rather try to build the bridges that they connect much more with each other than trying to, of course we have labels, but I would rather focus more on bringing them together. And this is happening, of course, but we can do more. We can do more around that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that because at the end of the day, all United employees are working tirelessly and there's a lot of different kind of work to be done out there also. And I've heard that a lot of employees around the world and just people in general are facing due to work and due to stress of just life in general, the pandemic and well-being too is what we've been talking about as well. A result has been burnout. So I want to ask, what tools are you providing managers to really proactively address burnout?
Yeah, I think our focus again is really like having that holistic approach. So it's not necessarily focused on burnout only. It's really focusing on the well-being. How do we ensure that our employees, managers included, are taking care and doing self-care? And if I use the metaphor of like, of a plane where you get the safety instructions where they say that you have to put your oxygen mask first before being able to help anyone else. It's exactly the same with our employees and our manager. They have to ensure that they put themselves first before being able to support their own team. And United has done an extraordinary job in increasing existing resources. So the pandemic has given the opportunity actually to increase certain resources that were like limited to our US workforce that have now been expanded to our international team as well. And another example is that they have offered on a frequently based events to inform our workforce in terms of well-being, mental health, and this program is called Be Your Very Best Inside and Outside. So I think, and just in terms of safety, again, like safety is our priority number one. So United has offered a lot of events related to COVID-19, not necessarily focusing on the numbers, but more focusing on like, what can we proactively do as an individual, as a company, informing people, inviting professionals to talk about the topic. And even the professionals that came in, they were very diverse from different level of expertise, which really personally has given me the opportunity to inform myself and to make informed decision about whether or not I wanted to be vaccinated.
I think offering a lot of resources is important, and the analogy used of the oxygen masks, especially with managers and leaders, modeling that behavior is so important, not only with vulnerability, but also taking time, using the resources that are available at the company. My next question is around leaders, and it's around those managers for effective leadership, since that has changed over this past year as well and will continue to change. But right now, how do you think about measuring the effectiveness of leadership? How do you know if leaders are doing a good job?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, how can you measure an um, effective leader? I think it's I would say with this pandemic, what really has put things into perspective is the fact that you need to put people first.
Mhm.
Um, it's about showing your vulnerability. It's okay to not be okay all the time. How do you connect with your employees nowadays? Because we shifted from, at least for those that were working in the office and that had the opportunity to work from home, you suddenly overnight had to become a remote leader.
Mhm.
Of course, we have also our workforce that were still coming in at the airport and other locations where they don't have the opportunity to work from home. But if I focus on managers, leaders that have like management and administrative employees that had that shift from being in the office and working from home, it's, as a leader, you really you had to develop like different skill sets in order to be successful and effective as a leader. It's inclusive leadership, it's caring, it's
Mhm.
showing that level of vulnerability. um, One example that I can give is also, with all that's going on in the world, this has directly or indirectly an impact on people. And we can say that what's happening outside, none of our business, but it comes into your workplace one way or another. So as a company and as leaders, we really need to be proactive about it. So we created a safe space where people could speak up and open up and talk about how they feel or any questions that they may have around uncertainty or social injustice. And we call that like our listening session. So we have an employee listening program. And so far, I feel like this has been really very effective. People are connecting with their leaders in a different way as well. So, yeah.
I think that's a big the puzzle as well in terms of asking employees how they're feeling, asking team members for feedback, both constructive and positive, and everything in between about their leadership style as well. I know we've been doing a lot of reflecting on current like strategies and how you've reacted to things in the past too. But I do want to look ahead as well in the people in the HR space. In your opinion, based on all of the experiences that you have had as well, what is a trend that the HR industry that companies and leaders really need to be aware of to be successful in the future of work?
Yeah, I think as HR, we are really in a position where we are in the middle of everything and where we need to be proactive. Generally, HR, we are part of the change because we are supporting the business, we are supporting the organization, we are the link with the different departments. But I think HR in itself, we are undergoing a transformational process. So we really need to be proactive, creative, innovative in a lot of things in order to be able to support our organization or business or employees or workforce. So to give you one example, this one hot topic is the return to the office. How do we manage that? I'm not even talking about the logistic, but how do we manage that from a people perspective? And I think that the return to the office, it's not necessarily the physically return to the office. It's people, they had 18 months to adjust to a new way of working. So when they will return with a different mindset, with different expectations. How are we going to manage that and ensuring that we have like a fair process for everyone? So we have like the hybrid model where people can work from home and partially and be in the office also part-time, but it goes beyond that. It's how do we ensure that we provide like the necessary flexibility to retain our talent as well. It's a whole talent management process. How do we ensure that we are proactive in how we want to attract, retain, and develop our talent? As I mean, if we just look at the researches and studies out there, a lot of people are rethinking what they want and what they no longer want. So I think that's one other example. But I think overall, we really have the opportunity to do things differently and being perceived as a critical business partner for the new way of work, the future of work.
Yeah,
So not a change, but really a complete transformation.
I think it's a call to action too, to be really innovative, and BAU or business as usual does not cut it anymore because it's not business as usual. And there is a huge opportunity. HR and people leaders and diversity, equity, and inclusion leaders have a really large seat at the table to create a really equitable place to work and just have hard conversations with employees as well and really empower them throughout the organization. I want to ask, go ahead.
And you know, within HR, we were always talking about like being agile.
Mhm.
I think the time is now to really prove that we are agile.
Mhm. I would 100% agree. The time is now, and there's a huge opportunity in challenges like this too. I want to ask as well. This is more of a personal question for you, but what is something that folks would be surprised to know about you, Khady, as a person?
Oh, I think that people will be surprised that I'm afraid of cats. So if you want to freak me out, just put me in front of a cat and I will run away. I can tell you. I don't know why something happened with me probably when I was a child, and since I'm afraid of cats for sure.
Well, I have a friend who's afraid of both cats and dogs, so I definitely think that is a real fear. So I will not bring any cats near you. I know we talked about a variety of topics from United strategy and your personal kind of thoughts around how to build inclusive work environments too, and just advice for the future. But is there anything either that I didn't ask that you want to share, or 1 to 2 key takeaways for our audience members to bring with them after listening to this episode?
Yeah, we talk a lot about inclusion, and depending on who you ask, I'm sure you will have as many descriptions as you have people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So personally, my mantra is that inclusion is a solution to exclusion. So just think, if you have that in your mindset, just think like in everything you do, it's inclusion every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you interact with people, like as a leader, when you're, conducting meetings, who are you inviting? Who is not invited? Who are you giving the opportunity to share their opinion? Making sure that you have that inclusive approach on a constant basis. It's just who you are. It's part of your routine. The way you communicate with people, ensure that you are using inclusive language. I think that's important too. And there is this statement from Fiona Myers that says, I think she says, diversity is being invited to a party, and inclusion is being asked to dance. And I'm adding to that it's even more than that. If I'm invited to a party and your buffet doesn't have anything that I'm able to eat, I don't feel included. If you're putting music that I don't like, I'm not going to the dance floor to dance. So inclusion is really, as I said from the very beginning, is the more you show curiosity about people, the more you will connect with people, and not focus only on the visible part. The invisible part is also extremely important. And that's how you will be able to connect with people, removing any stereotypes or fear, that potentially you may have, or limiting beliefs. And inclusion for me is really, I'm invited to a party. On your buffet, you know what I like, what my dietary restrictions are. You have put in place the playlist, so at least there will be one or two music that I'm going to be on the dance floor. And again, if you put me on the dance floor, I will stay on the dance floor. And it's all the combination of all of that, that I will feel like included and have that sense of belonging. Like, we are in a living room, we are sitting in a couch, and we're just having a great human moment, because it's about one shared humanity.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like the analogy. I included that in an article recently, and I really think it's important to have that mindset. And as we were talking, change doesn't happen overnight, but there are things that we as people and individuals can do tomorrow, like using inclusive language, making sure you're leading inclusive meetings and asking yourselves those internal questions that really have a big impact over time too. So I think that's a great point to end on. Khady, thank you so much for being on Reimagining Company Culture. I enjoyed our conversation.
I enjoyed the conversation as well, Christina. Thank you for having me. And yeah, looking forward to continue interacting with you. Thank you.
Yes, I'm looking forward to continuing to connect with you as well. And as a reminder for folks who are listening, AllVoices believes in the empowerment of everyone at a company to speak up. And we know it's a requirement for the organization to be successful. Have a good rest of your afternoon.